Isn't it strange that schools don't teach about the first human civilization? They made many things we still use today, like the calendar. The calendar we use comes from the Sumerians, who based it on the moon. Not many people know this. They also created the way we measure time, like hours and minutes. This counting system is also used in math and geometry. They even made the first writing system called cuneiform, which used pictures like we use symbols for words now. In this video, I'm going to talk about many things made by the Sumerians. Even stories from common religions come from them, but most people don't know. It's strange that schools don't teach much about them. In high school history books, you might only find a few sentences about them, usually mixed in with other topics. They're known for making the wheel, but they also knew things we can't explain, which I'll also talk about in this video. But if you don't know about the ancient Sumerians, they're from Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent. We only found out about them 150 years ago when we discovered a lot of clay and stone tablets in modern-day Iraq. They used cylinder seals to make these tablets. In a library in modern-day Mosul, Iraq, called the Archer Bonapal, they found over 30,000 of these tablets, many broken. This is also where they found winged bulls. Some call them the Anunnaki, or sky gods, and there's a lot of talk and argument about them. But in these clay tablets, we've found out about many things they made, not just glass or the wheel like I said earlier, but even the sailboat. They also started modern farming by inventing the plow and seed sowing machine. The Sumerians built the first sewer systems, canals, and watering systems. They even drew maps, like this plaque showing advanced sewer systems and water channels for farming. They made trade routes using these maps, over 3,000 years before the Silk Road, which we learn about in school. They traveled over 3,000 kilometers or nearly 19 miles to Pakistan. These trade routes brought lots of different cultures together. The Sumerians were the first to use jewelry, makeup, and even beer. They wrote down over 500 beer recipes on stone and clay tablets. So, craft beer started with them. They also made musical instruments. One tablet talks about 23 different instruments like flutes, drums, tambourines, and the harp. You could even say they invented entertainment. Look at these tablets. They show the first wrestling or mixed martial arts matches. At least that's what's written. So, what did they do with all this stuff? Well, look at this tablet. Yeah, you can guess what's happening there. They were drinking beer and having fun almost 4,000 years ago. As I mentioned before, the Sumerians made the first writing system and schools. Important people learned there how to write about themselves. They even made the first contracts. Funny, right? They were very good at trading. Let me guess what this says. Pay up or else. But what's really interesting is that on these tablets, they say they got all their knowledge from other beings. The Anunnaki, which means from heaven to earth came. Some people think this is where the idea of ancient astronauts came from. There's a lot of talk about this. I don't believe everything people say about it, like aliens building the pyramids. But it's interesting how they give credit to others for their knowledge. Some people think it's a symbol for angels or gods. Let's talk about what the Sumerians said they knew and later turned out to be true. Take the story of the Great Flood. You might know this story from over 500 different cultures around the world. Recent science proves that it really did happen. From core samples in Greenland and other evidence, we can see that during the last ice age, sea levels were 425 feet lower than they are now. Over time, they slowly rose, but there were big, sudden increases too. So, the Sumerians were right about the flood. It's interesting that many academics and scientists still call it a myth. But what's even more interesting is that the Sumerians knew about it 6,000 years ago when they wrote it down. Makes you think, doesn't it? Now, check out this tablet. It's pretty famous, known as the Solar System tablet. Take a look. What do you see? How could they have known about planets going around the sun 6,000 years ago? That's over 5,000 years before Copernicus said the planets moved around the sun. And it was even before telescopes were invented. People back then thought the Earth was flat, right? How did they figure this out? Just to be clear, most experts say that these are not planets but stars. There's even a website dedicated to proving Zechariah Sitchin wrong, called sitchiniswrong.com. I checked it out, and the main argument is that Sitchin didn't read the cuneiform on the tablet itself, but described what it said in his PDF. So, I looked at it, and it basically says that since the tablet doesn't mention stars or planets, it's all wrong. But take a look and think for yourself. What do you think that is? And this leads to lots of questions because it's like, are there 11 planets? And then, okay, what about Pluto? Is it still a planet? That's such a silly debate. Some scientists want to change things. But who cares how far away it is or how small? Grow up. But this makes me think about the asteroid belt. I've talked about this in other videos. It seems like it used to be a planet or a big moon or something. Something crashed into it. Scientists say it happened millions of years ago, but they don't really have all the facts to say that for sure. You need to know the size of the objects and how fast they were going, so they can't be sure how long ago it happened. But when you look at these tablets, could they be talking about the 9th planet that we know exists? All the evidence shows that there's a big 9th planet out there, 4 or 5 times bigger than Earth. It's making Neptune and Uranus tilt. That's how scientists figured out it might be there. Well, they haven't seen it yet. They're still looking. It's probably really far away, and it might have a completely different orbit, but they know it's somewhere out there. And here's this tablet from 6,000 years ago showing these things. And guess what? Zechariah Sitchin was the one who said there was another planet out there. And now, 40 years later, it seems like he might have been right. That's interesting. But these tablets have more information. Look at them. And there are others showing 7 stars, 7 planets, 7 something, 7 dots. Some say it's probably like the Pleiades star system, which has 7 stars. But why doesn't it look like it? What's interesting is that people who believe in the ancient astronaut theory say, if beings from another planet were visiting ours, they'd pass by 7 planets to get here. It's an interesting idea. Oh, and check out this tablet with one of those winged bulls. Here's something else interesting to think about. There's some evidence that the Sumerians knew about the Great Year Cycle, which is Earth's tilt and precession, a cycle that lasts 25,920 years. When you think about their knowledge of the zodiac and a few other things with their counting system, you could say they knew about this cycle. And that's amazing considering it was thousands of years before the Mayans figured it out. It's a mystery how they did it. Back then, 1 degree of change happened every 72 years, and people didn't live as long as they do now. So, figuring that out is really impressive, and it's still a mystery. But to finish, let's remember they knew about time, the calendar. They made all these amazing things. They knew about the flood thousands of years later. And going back to that religion comment I made at the start of this video, the story of Moses is exactly the same as King Sargon of Akkad from 4,000 years ago, from the same area. So, there's definitely a reason why people don't learn about this. Isn't that interesting? The story of creation, the flood, Moses and other things come from ancient Sumeria, but nobody knows about it. They only teach us a few sentences in school, and they don't really teach that much. I didn't learn about the Sumerians until later in life watching documentaries. We have to ask why these tablets are being ignored. Out of the tens of thousands of tablets, most aren't on display and are just gathering dust in museum basements around the world. And to make it worse, most of these tablets were only translated once by one person over 100 years ago. We need to look at them again. Clearly, they knew about things they weren't supposed to. Planets going around the sun, 5,000 years before telescopes. Look at this stuff and think for yourself. I'll stop here. Like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know what you think, and I'll have many more videos on lots of topics.